good. Well, I'd like to welcome folks here for the rollout of our strategic plan for the combined fire and rescue system for Loudoun County. This planning effort started back actually last spring, about a year ago, when the Board of Supervisors passed the board item to create the new structure and the ordinance for the Loudoun County Combined Fire and Rescue System. Efforts went into planning over the spring months and over the summer months, and the first planning effort began in October with a steering committee that was comprised essentially of the new executive team, which includes the President Brad Quinn from the Purcellville Volunteer Fire Department, Chief Jim Cook from the Leesburg Volunteer Fire Department, Chief Byron Andrews from the Sterling Park Rescue Squad, Assistant Chief Keith Johnson, Assistant Chief Matt Tobia, Dr. Morgan, and Assistant Deputy Chief Linda Hale, Chief Fire Marshal for Loudoun County. So on the weekend of October 14th and 15th, planning was done. A Friday night and a Saturday session were held to form the basis of our strategic plan. At the end of that session, there were 11 strategic initiatives and some 30 goals that were established, packaged, and put forward for a larger strategic planning session, which was held December 12th, December 13th, 2014. That session involved cross-representation from county staff and the individual volunteer fire and rescue corporations. A total of 75 folks participated in a Friday evening session and Saturday session. And out of that session, those initiatives, goals were refined and ultimately further refined to create 111 objectives, which form the basis of the plan. It was pretty obvious that with 31 goals, that was not something we felt we could tackle in 1 year. So in March of 2015, we initiated a survey, and we asked the participants from the December strategic plan session to set their top five priorities amongst the 31 goals. Those results came back in. Clearly, there was a top five, but some of the five were pretty close. So what we've elected to do in the actual strategic report is give you the top 10. So those are the key objectives that are referenced in the plan that will form the basis of year one of our strategic plan implementation. It is my sincere hope that what we will wind up doing is visiting this plan every year with the assistance of our consulting friends so that we can update and refine the plan and keep it a living document. One of the problems we've had over the years is we've initiated a number of planning efforts. Plans are produced, consultants are brought in. The documents are used for maybe 1 year, but then they sit on the shelf and they're not used, they're not kept alive and updated. So it is my hope that this plan is this is the beginning of a plan process that will last us for 3 to 5 years. I want to remind everyone that this is a strategic rollout, and I realize people haven't had the opportunity to review this plan. The Board of Supervisors, by protocol, needed to see the plan. The plan was presented to the Board of Supervisors last evening, and now we're conducting a series of rollout sessions to the system. This session is being videotaped and will be posted online at the loudoun.gov site for fire and rescue. And then there will be a subsequent rollout session Saturday morning from 10 to 12 in Purcellville at Patrick Henry College. The strategic plan itself, a soft copy, will be placed on the fire rescue website so that everyone can have access to this. I'm going to turn this over in a second to our consultant, Mr. Sheldon Gilbert. He works for ESCI, which is Emergency Services Consulting International. There's a bit of a history here that I think is important for folks. Back in the 1990s, when recruitment and retention of volunteers was being recognized as a nationwide problem, a gentleman named Jack Snook out in the Oregon area with another person named Dan Olson began putting together strategies and programs for recruitment and retention of volunteers. Chief Snook and Dan Olson visited Loudoun County in the early 90s and delivered some of the basic programs for recruitment and retention of volunteers, which is, some of them are still viable strategies even in today's environment. Chief Snook went on to become the chief for the Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue Service, a combined system in the Portland, Oregon area, and subsequently, upon retirement, formed this consulting firm that is with us today. So there's a historical tie between this company, its owner, his familiarity with Loudoun County, his familiarity with combination systems, that I believe has transitioned into the new corporation, the new business, ESCI, that really brings it home for Loudoun County. So what I'm going to do now is turn this over to Mr. Sheldon Gilbert with ESCI, who will go through the strategic plan, and we'll be able to address any questions you may have at the conclusion of that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Well, good afternoon. At least this afternoon here when we're taping. So whatever time you're watching this, I'm glad you could join us. I think this is a really important thing for everyone in the organization to understand and be a part of. My name is Sheldon Gilbert. I am the retired fire chief from the Alameda County Fire Department on the West Coast in the San Francisco Bay Area. I spent about 29 years in that county in different capacities, and started out as a volunteer, went to part-paid position and ultimately a career position, and retired in 2012 and went to work for ESCI as a consultant. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of professional or career departments, volunteer departments, and combination departments. And it's really unique what you've got here. It's really special, and I am quite impressed with what you've been able to put together with this strategic planning process. A strategic planning process really needs three things to remain viable and not be a binder on a shelf. The first thing it needs is fingerprints from every corner of the organization. And Chief Brower has done a good job bringing all of the stakeholders together with the leadership from all the companies and the department for that retreat that he talked about that we had in December. And it's the first time I've had the opportunity to facilitate a 75-member plus strategic planning group. But we broke up into subgroups, and they, in fact, came up with a lot of quality, good recommendations and goals and objectives, which we're going to share with you today. So this does have fingerprints from all of the organization and will only be successful if you continue to participate and keep your hands on it. The second thing that's really important is to understand that this is a living document. This is not a brochure or a binder that will be put on a shelf and implemented as is, and it will pretty much stay the same forever. That's not what it's intended to be. This is a living document that's going to be revisited every year. While the priority initiatives may stay the same, some of the goals and objectives may move around, you may even add or tweak some of the priorities in this plan, because as time marches on and the needs of your community change, you need to be able to have that kind of flexibility. So this is a living document, and we need you to see it that way, that this is the starting of this plan, not the conclusion. And then lastly, you need to have your senior leadership at all levels of the organization supportive of this plan. And the fact that we had the leadership in the room from all the different companies and squads and rescue groups and the department speaks volumes, that they will have some buy-in into this and that they will be part of implementing this. And so you're going to have a lot of different people be able to work on this, and you're going to have opportunities coming up for different types of committees or groups. And I would encourage you, as we go through this high-level view, that you take time to read the document, study the document, find your area of interest, passion, or expertise, and make yourself available when the opportunity arises. So we'll go through this. It'll take about 20 or 25 minutes, but I think it'll give you a good overview of what we did and how we got here. Next slide. So just a little bit of history. In 2005, your organization did have a strategic plan. It was a very internally focused strategic plan with a lot of metrics and performance measures, which are fine and good. There's nothing wrong with that. And for the time and the moment when it was created is probably exactly what you needed. What we've done this time with the leadership of the executive team committee, as well as all of the leadership team, was to really look at this from a strategic policy standpoint and how we can move this forward. There are going to be some performance metrics, some staffing and operation specifics between the lines with some of these initiatives, but that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is a strategic policy level document that will move the organization forward for the next 3 to 5 years. As you stated, after the reconfiguration of the Loudoun County Combined Fire Rescue System last year, the chief and all of the leadership, as well as the Board of Supervisors, realized there needed to be a strategic plan put together that represents this new reality. This whole redesign of your system was based on the need and the desire to have a more stakeholder-based, input-based organization that's more responsive to the unique needs of all the different jurisdictions that you serve. And so this is really the accumulation of that, and we brought those folks together at an executive committee retreat in October, and then we worked specifically on what are the policy initiatives, what are the issues that are out there, the global initiatives. And then we brought those along with some thoughts about a mission, vision, and value statements into that leadership retreat in December. And then we further refined those to develop the goals and objectives, which you're going to see me kind of review today at a high level. And then here we are in April. We are rolling this out. This was presented to the Board of Supervisors yesterday on April 15th. And they are going to be giving it further consideration and review at the next Finance Committee meeting. And it is the department's desire to have it adopted at some point by them as we move forward. Next slide. So at the Executive Committee retreat, we took a look at the mission and the vision and the values of the organization as it stands today and had a very robust and good discussion on how those apply and how important those are as foundational elements of a successful organization. And one of the things that we came to the conclusion about was there are several mission and vision and value statements throughout the different companies represented in the fire rescue system. And they have great value, they have specificity to their community and to their organizational needs, and those need to be allowed to stand. And so what we came out of that with is we do need to have a common vision that moves this organization forward and is really the underpinnings for this plan. And I want to share them with you real quick. I'm going to walk over here and read them. They're on page 5 of the actual strategic plan document. But the 4 vision statements that everybody agreed to was that you want to be an innovative organization that consistently exceeds the expectations of the public that you serve. That is a very noble and an appropriate goal, that you want to meet and exceed the expectations of your communities. I believe in many ways you're doing that, but there are a lot of opportunities for you to continue to do that. The second vision statement is that you want to be a model integrated combination system from which other agencies seek insight and guidance. In other words, you want to be seen as an organization that did this right. You're a very complex system, but you have a lot of potential and a lot of capabilities within that complexity, and you want to be able to harness those and manage those in such a way that other combination organizations will look to you for leadership and how to do this successfully. The third one was you want to be an organization that is committed to the safety and professional development of your members. We heard a common theme over and over and over again. It's about our people. It's about recruiting. It's about retention. It's about safety while you're here. It's about living well and being healthy and being able to have a productive career and a healthy life after your career. There was firm commitment in all aspects of this plan to do what you can to keep your workforce healthy and to develop them. Then lastly, you want to be an inclusive organization that reflects your community. And certainly part of that is just gender and race demographics that are changing within your county, but also it has to do with the risk and the population and the access and the general dynamics of your service area, and how are you going to take this, what used to be a relatively rural county to more of an urbanized county, and what does that look like, and how do you address those needs and those risk factors and those response needs for the future. And you want to be able to accurately reflect and be able to address those needs well. So those are kind of some vision statements that everyone got behind at the retreat, at the executive level, as well as the leadership retreat that we had in December. From there, when we took these into to the retreat in December, we went ahead and kind of validated those vision statements and actually had consensus, had every arm in the room go up, as I recall, on those vision statements. And then we talked about the policy initiatives, which I'm going to review for you. And then they broke up into groups and created some goals. So the initiative is the policy topic. A goal is an achievable, measurable thing that you want to do to accomplish that. There's anywhere from 2 to 5 goals per initiative. And then under the goals, there's objectives. Objectives are more your task level items on specifically what you're going to do to achieve the goal to address the initiative. Those were all developed at the second retreat. The groups came back together. Everyone had an opportunity to present and review all of the goals and objectives that are associated with these initiatives, and there was consensus and buy-off on those, and there was some tweaking that went on, but at the end of the day, everybody supported the plan as it was written. To further make sure that the organization's priorities are represented, the system's priorities are represented, the department put out all of the objectives, or the goals, excuse me, and you were able to prioritize them. The leadership team was able to prioritize them. This is the same group that went to the second retreat. And they have done that, and they through a survey process, have validated and prioritized those. And I'm going to share with you the top 10 items in a few minutes of what the priorities were so that you can see where you're going to focus a good amount of attention in the early times of this plan execution. And then we have the strategic plan rollout, which you're experiencing today. So the strategic planning team, the leadership team that I talked about that went through this whole process was very diverse, and it represented all corners of the organization. You had the rescue system chiefs, the company chiefs, deputy chiefs, assistant and battalion chiefs, company officers, administration, emergency management was represented. Your EMS rescue squad and medical control leadership was represented, and your dispatch management was represented. And then we, of course, had a number of consultants there to help facilitate that meeting. So it's a broad cross-section of the whole organization at all levels. This 3 to 5 year plan has some attributes that I want to share with you that I think are really important and I think speaks to the spirit of what you're trying to accomplish here. And it's something that I think is very, very good and something that is very good for you to get behind. One of the things that has happened is your organization has changed over time. You're experiencing growth in this county that's pretty much in the upper tier of growth that's happening anywhere in the nation. It's changed the appearance of your organization and the communities that you serve, and your combination combined fire rescue system is evolving. And so this plan is an attempt to try to adequately address and anticipate that continued evolution and that continued change. The second thing is, and I kind of hit on this, but I'll hit it one more time, this is all about input received from the employees. This is your strategic plan as a system. This is not the administration's strategic plan or a specific company's strategic plan. This is the system's strategic plan. And to that end, everybody has went through extraordinary efforts to make sure everybody has a shot at helping develop this. This plan addresses a number of administrative, financial, and operational impacts on the organization. It is all inclusive. This is not just specifically addressing operations or administration or finance or dispatch, training. It touches all of it. And it touches all of it in kind of a holistic way so the whole organization can move forward effectively. The plan is opportunity focused. You had a lot of bright people in that room, and I was able to share some things that are happening out in the industry as a standard, and it really does take advantage of some opportunities that you're going to have because of your uniqueness, where you're located, and what's happening in your communities. The plan is results and accountability oriented. One of the things we heard early on is we don't want another binder that just disappears and nobody knows about. So there's a lot of effort going into this so that you will be able to see how we're going to track this, how we're going to update that, how it's going to be managed, how you're going to have access to it, and how you can be a part of it. So it's very much accountability oriented and transparent. It's going to provide an opportunity for ongoing input. You're going to see as we move on and talk further about how that might happen. And then it is being presented in a draft form at this point, because if there are any tweaks or any changes, that will be made, and then at some point the Board of Supervisors will approve it and it will be locked in. But once again, it's a living document that will be adjusted and tweaked annually. A couple of themes that we captured through this whole process about your organization, I think are pretty significant, and something to be very proud of and something to be built on. Internally, this is an organization with a tremendous amount of institutional pride and history. This organization and this system represents so many different aspects of the communities in Loudoun County and the changes in Loudoun County from days gone by to now to well into the future. There's some really great attributes that are accentuated here. But along with that strength, there's an opportunity to develop policies and procedures and increase communication because you're becoming a very large system. And as your integration continues to become more and more seamless, there needs to be better and better communication that's accurate, timely, and in context. And so one of the things that this plan really does is tries to build upon those strengths and make sure that we can address those areas that have opportunity for improvement, such as communication and consistency. Externally, we talked to a lot of your leadership about what the community's saying and the elected officials and others. What are they saying about you? And here's what we heard. You are held in extraordinarily high regard in the communities throughout Loudoun County. You provide an extraordinary level of service, and they are very, very impressed by the scope and depth of services that you provide with the resources that you have available. And so this is something that is really, really good and a strong foundational element that you can build on through this plan. And I believe there is an opportunity for you to have increased communication and integration with the community. The chief and I and some others have been talking about how we could potentially integrate the community into this plan as it's implemented, as it's monitored, as it moves along, and make them be a part of it, not only from a participatory standpoint, but have it be very transparent and have them see the changes and have them see the things that you're accomplishing as a system. And then the greatest threat that I garnered out of this whole thing is, we came out of a pretty bad recession in 2008, and Loudoun County is doing better than most, quite honestly, coming out of that. But we also know from history that we don't always sustain those growth patterns, and you have to build an organization to be sustainable at what we would call financial equilibrium. Where's it going to end up? It's not going to be the land of milk and honey forever. Hopefully we'll never hit another 2008 dive, but it is going to level off. So as you build this thing, you have to be careful to overcommitting one-time money and one-time resources that can't be sustained over the long term. I say that with a bit of experience in my mind because I was in California in the 80s when we were doing this, and the communities were growing like Loudoun County, and I was responding into communities where we didn't have maps yet because they were growing so fast, and we spent a lot of one-time money, and when I left as fire chief in 2012, that had flattened and declined, and we were having significant financial issues about maintaining and sustaining that level of service. So as you're going up the ladder, it's really important to look at what's sustainable and how you're going to do that in the future when you hit equilibrium. The foundational elements of your plan are those vision statements that I read to you from a system standpoint, but there also are mission statements and system values that many of the companies have individually. The executive team committee worked on developing some, as well as the department. So those are really important to you. And I think that you need to continue to build on those and always hold up everything you do in this plan to those mission, vision, and values and say, is this who we are? Is this how we behave while we get there? And is this moving us towards the visionary organization that I just went over with you a few minutes ago? There's also some statements by the chief in there, Chief Brower, regarding his vision for the system as a whole. And those are very much worth pondering and looking at and spending some time with, because I think it will further just substantiate what you're doing, why you're doing it, and the direction you're going. So we came up with 11 key policy level initiatives. These are those general 30,000-foot topics I told you about that the plan breaks down into goals and objectives. And just real quickly, I'll go over each of them, and you certainly can spend some time in the plan reading about them and reading the goals and objectives, which I won't cover today, but it'll give you greater insight as to how you're going to feed into these and address these. So communication was a big one. We're going to talk about prioritization in a minute, and you're going to see that's right at the top. Not an uncommon theme, but given the complexities and size of your organization, you have some unique challenges here. And having consistent, timely, accurate communication through the right medium, from the right person to the right person, is something that is seen as extraordinarily important at all levels, and that's one of the initiatives. Diversity, we talked a little bit about that. We're talking about all aspects of your community and your system changing, being a dynamic organization, being able to meet the needs for the future, anticipating where you're heading. Loudoun County looks very different today than it did in 1980, and it'll look very different 5, 6, 7 years from now than it does today. And you need to be prepared to meet those needs and those challenges. Financial sustainability, I talked about that a little bit too, making sure that as you climb up and implement this plan during these growth periods, you do it in such a way that you can sustain it. Marketing and outreach, there's a lot of opportunities for you to help the community and others around the community know what you're doing and engage them in helping you become better at what you do. Access to the community is a major part of strong service delivery. and you want to make sure you have maximized access. You've done some community and outreach stuff. There's not been what I would call a global marketing plan that I'm aware of or that anybody shared with me, and it's some opportunities there. You're going to see some goals and objectives to get information out to the community and back in a timely manner. Mechanisms to build trust. You have a long established history, not uncommon in the fire service, because I can still remember what somebody did to me back in '78 that I will never get over. And that's just the reality we live in, but we have to, and we have to move on. And because you're such a complex organization and you've witnessed and have experienced so much change, there are opportunities within the organization to increase trust and to increase that ability to work together. And there are mechanisms specifically in the plan to do that. It was seen as an important enough issue that there are things in here specifically you're going to do to have success together. The greatest way to build trust, other than going to a fire together, is to get some things accomplished together that make the organization better and more sustainable for the future generations. And that's what you're going to do in this plan, and you're going to build some trust while you do it. Member recruitment and retention. It is loud and clear, not Loudoun, loud and clear, and loud and clear, that the demographics of your communities are changing, and the ability to recruit and retain volunteer responders can be challenging with the amount of mandates and training and different things that you now have to do to maintain response status. It can be a challenge. This is something that everyone saw as a significant issue, and given the value and the importance of your volunteer response system in this county, and the desire to preserve that in its proper role throughout the communities where it is currently happening, was a big part of this plan. And so you're going to see a lot of things in there to work on that recruitment and retention at the career levels too, making sure they have good recruitment and retention plans there. Organizational development and professional development, I will kind of group together, but you'll see specific goals and objectives under each one. But there is a common standard theme that they want to see this organization and the personnel in this organization develop under common expectations, under common standards where appropriate, where you are meeting or exceeding industry best practices, where you are taking a look at what you're doing, and if you shouldn't be doing it, you jettison it and move to the things that you should be doing. There's a lot of different things that are in this report and in this strategic plan regarding developing this organization and developing yourself within the organization in whatever ranks and whatever capacity you're serving. Safety and wellness was another key initiative. This has to do not only with your physical wellness, but behavioral wellness. We had a meeting this morning, and the chief answered some questions about employee assistance programs and a simple desire to have that available to all members of this system, including the volunteer members. And there's some statutory limitations at the state level about that. And so there's different things that are going to have to be done that this might bring to light, but it's going to take time. And it's going to take effort to make that happen. So there's different things, but safety and wellness, both from a training, equipment, and resource availability, is something that is really at the core of this plan, and something that everybody wants to make sure is addressed adequately so that you have a very well-supported workforce at the volunteer and the career levels. Service delivery, there's a lot between the lines there. When you start talking about growth, when you start talking about response metrics, when you start talking about outcome-based responses, which are coming, it's an industry standard, how are you going to address that in the future? There's some goals and objectives in there around accreditation, which is going to drive a lot of other conversations around standards of cover. There's some things in there about working through your rescue response for your heavy rescue units, which was a common theme. It even showed up in the top 10. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Some work has already been done on that, but there's, excuse me, a continuation of work that needs to be done and will be done regarding that. And then training. We have so many mandates at the regulatory and statutory level. There are almost more mandates than there are hours to train. And in some cases, that is the case. And so when you look at training standards, training mandates, delivery systems, are there ways we can streamline? Are there ways we can automate? Are there ways we can consolidate? Are there different things we can do to make the training mandates such that both on the volunteer or the career side, they can be accomplished within the time that you have available and the capacity that you have available? So those are the 11 key initiatives that we wrote those goals and objectives over. As the chief said, there are 11 initiatives. I believe there are 31 goals and around 111 objectives. That's a lot of stuff. It's not going to all happen overnight, and it's certainly not going to happen just by the executive leadership of this organization or even the leadership within the different companies. It's going to take all of you to take a piece of this to make this work over a period of time. So here's what you told us is most important to you as it relates to all of the goals that were created to address those initiatives I just went over with you. The first one, and I hope none of these are a surprise because I think that would show that it's adequately representative of what you all are thinking out there in the field, is effective communication and reaching the appropriate stakeholder needs to be a core value of system behavior. In other words, communication has at times and in segments of this organization been interpreted and seen as an afterthought. Nobody likes to be surprised. Nobody likes to know that the company assignment changed to the fire in your first in area after you're at the fire and a different company shows up. Everybody understands that there's room for improvement in this area, and this was the number one surveyed highest priority from the leadership. Secondly, was developing a system-wide process for development and implementation of policies. Across the board, everybody was very, very eager and enthusiastic about the potential for aligning expectations, standardizing where at all possible, having policies that meet or exceed industry standards. What people were a little less comfortable with is how are these policies developed, who's creating them, and how do they impact me? And I don't ever get any input on these things. They just come out and they surprise me. So the development of a participation and decision-making process in the organization was a very, very, very important priority. I have already forwarded some information to the department executive team to look at on different types of systems that are out there, but I am sure you're going to see more and more work done so you can have a process that takes an idea to a policy and gives opportunity for the appropriate people to see it, to give input, to review it, and in some cases it'll allow you to take the idea, which you may have, which is the right idea, and ultimately get it into a policy format. Establishing minimum qualifications and training for positions. There's a lot of different standards and different approaches going on between the different members of the system. And this is something that there's great opportunity to standardize and to make realistic. And we talked about having capacity and ability to meet whatever those standards and qualifications are. That was the number 3 highest priority, something you're going to be doing a lot of work on. There's a lot of tools and a lot of models out there that you can look at that can help you achieve this. And retain and develop current system members. Everybody understands it's getting harder and harder to find folks who can respond during the day, and people are driving farther and farther to get to work. And, you know, the days of us being able to work where we responded and be able to shut down the operation for an hour or two is getting harder and harder. And so there needs to be new ways of recruiting and retaining and addressing those issues and working together from a volunteer and a career standpoint to fill the gaps in a collaborative manner. And so you're going to be looking at retaining and developing current system members to meet the current and future needs. And then providing responsible leadership continually. There is a great desire by the leaders in that room, by not only the department but the other companies. They really want to provide consistent leadership. They want there to be aligned expectations throughout the system. Nobody really enjoys significant policy deviation in the absence of continuity and cooperation. So everybody would like to see that come together. And I think that there's an opportunity, and it's a high priority in the goals to make that happen. Number 6 was almost an add-on to number 1, but I guess y'all just wanted to say it again. You want timely and adequate communication. You want to make sure it's getting out in a timely manner, that it's adequate through the right medium, and that you understand the message and where it's coming from. Improving behavioral health for system members. This goes back to that well and safe workforce. Not only are they concerned about the equipment and the training and all the technology and all the things that are going to help keep you safe and vibrant in your fire service career, but they also want to make sure that your behavioral health issues are addressed also. This is a very trying and a very, very traumatic profession at times. And there are some things, as much as we don't like to admit it, and we just, yeah, it's just what I do. I get it, but it takes a toll. It takes a toll from getting woken up every night to seeing some things that other people hopefully will never have to see. How do we address this system for all members? And I talked a little bit about that and what an employee assistance program challenge that you face. So those types of issues. Number 8 was building a philosophy of transparency among system members. So along with building trust, as you can imagine, when people don't trust, they fear that things are being done in silos and in closets that would otherwise need to be seen by everybody, and it's not being transparent, and it's not something that you feel you can be a part of. So they really want to make sure that you build the types of programs and systems and technologies that will allow you to touch things and see them on 1 or 2 clicks. You shouldn't be, have to look 10 different places to get validation on a policy or a procedure or a core vision or value of this organization or your organization. And so there's going to be a lot of work done on building that type of transparency among the system members. And then right in line with that is having clarity and consistency within the system. There really is a desire to have a system that will meet everybody's needs. And while there will always be some unique needs within the communities and the companies, there is a greater global good that wants to be accomplished through consistency and alignment of standards and expectations. So you're going to see a lot of emphasis put on that. That was the 9th. And then the 10th was probably the only operational, clearly specific thing that came in the goals, and that was to address the gaps in the heavy rescue service delivery. I do not know all the history. I know just enough of it to be dangerous, but I do know that there's a lot of passion out there about this program, and there's a significant need in these communities for that service, and you're trying to figure out how to fill that gap because it's been provided in several different ways over the years. I know some measures have already been taken by Chief Brower and the Board of Supervisors, but there's further work that needs to be done. That is something that if you have a passion for and something that you want to be involved in or have an opinion on, you need to look for opportunities, because they probably will be coming, to make some comments or give some input on that as you continue to address that problem. So those are the top 10. So out of the 131 goals, those are the top 10 that everybody wants to take a look at first, if at all possible. So I think it's pretty safe to say those are the type of themes you're going to see out of the gate here as you start putting together who's going to be doing what. So what are the next steps? Well, after we roll this out today, you need to spend some time reading the plan. If you have questions and you want them answered, you need to find the appropriate authority and email them. Is that going to be you? So Karen McQuaid, I believe, is going to be the email point of contact at this point. If you have any questions regarding this specific, the strategic plan, she may not answer them all herself, but she will find the answer, and we will get back to you in a timely manner. But we want to make sure that you understand what's in here and you try to identify what role you're going to play. The other thing that's going to happen is they're going to establish a program management lead and a program management tracking system. If you look at the end of the booklet or the strategic plan, if you're looking online, the last 3 pages are appendices or some tools that you can use to have real transparent updates as to the status of the plan, tracking on the different initiatives, using of an operational plan so you can track the progress at the objective or the task level. And there's also a weighting tool. So if you're on a committee or you're assigned an objective or a goal with several objectives, which one are we going to do first? There's some weighting criteria there that's going to help you determine what needs to be done first. There'll be other tools too. There will be an identified project lead on this at some point. Somebody's going to own this, and it's his or her job to be able to look at and coordinate all the different initiative work that's being done. So there's some specific things you can look at there. There will be work groups and resources with volunteer and career members, and once those are established and the project lead puts out requests for help, for information, for input, for committee membership, if you've got a passion or you've got some knowledge, please step forward, make the organization better. That's the whole point of this, is to get your fingerprints on this thing as it moves forward and come up with solutions that will work and will last and will be sustainable. We need you to be a part of that. And then the last thing is that we're going to plan for program updates and adjustments to ensure continuity of effort. The chief has made it clear that he would like me to continue to work with the system over the next several years on occasion to check progress, to help with tracking, to make sure you're moving forward, to offer some industry best practices, insight that I might have just because I'm out traveling around all over the place all the time, and seeing if we can help you move this forward and keep it moving. If you keep it a living document, if you keep it a work in progress, if it integrates into your annual planning, budgetary planning, and other things that you normally do, then it will become second nature. It'll become part of this organizational culture, and you'll start to shift towards the direction of the plan. If you don't touch it, if you don't participate, if you're waiting for it to fail, it'll just be another binder on the shelf collecting dust, and nobody wanted to do that, and that's not the intention of any of the leadership that I saw. So with that, I believe that is the end of my presentation. Once again, my email and phone number on here if you have any questions from a process standpoint for ESCI. But the chief's going to come up, with Operations Chief Johnson's going to come up and close this down, and we'll go from there. So thank you for your time and attention, and here's Chief.
Thank you, Sheldon. One of the things we spoke about this morning's presentation was about input from the organization, input from the system. With 11 initiatives, 31 goals, and 111 operational objectives, it's going to be very important for us as a system to have full participation. Certainly, you're going to hear that from Chief Toby and I think from Chief Brower, that this is very exciting for us being a part of this, coming into the system and being a part of this from the ground up. We certainly look forward to solving all of these initiatives and objectives that we have listed here. But it's going to take the help of everybody. And we as a system have the opportunity to grow this department, take this department to the next level where it is and should be. And we feel very confident that we'll achieve all of the objectives. We certainly have a great start with the prioritization of these top 10. And we've already begun on many of them. And many things are underway at this time. But we ask for your input. If you want to be in the game, you have to get off the sideline and put yourself into the game, and we're going to ask each of you to do that. And again, we'll be sending out accomplishments to informational bulletins, asking for committees. We've already done that on the System-Wide Policy Committee, and we're going to look for other committees where you can be involved in taking this department to the next level. So be part of the system, be part of the change, get on board, and that's going to be our consistent message going forward. So thank you.